Okay, we're ready.
Great. Welcome to the February 22nd, 2022 meeting of the CB6 Land Use and Waterfront Committee. My name is Sandy McKee and I'm the chair of the Land Use and Waterfront Committee. This meeting is called to order at 7:03. And sorry, you've just covered my script on me there, sorry. Tonight we are joined by District Manager Jesus Perez and Assistant District Manager Brendan Berth. Members of the public, you can raise any questions or comments that you have through the Q&A feature of Zoom. If there is time following the committee's discussion, we will field questions from the public. We are looking for a volunteer to take minutes for tonight's meeting. If you are able to take minutes, please raise your hand through Zoom. We have a new, very easy to follow template. Do we have any volunteers? Kavitha, thank you very much. Kavitha Matthews will be taking minutes. You should have received an email from the board office with a link to a doodle sign-up sheet for minute takers at our committee meetings in 2022. For your convenience, the link to the sign-up sheet is being posted in the chat now. And we would like to take attendance, and that will be done by roll call. Brendan, please.
Committee members, I will call your name and you will unmute yourselves. When your name is called, please say present. I will announce if there is quorum. Jim Collins. Adam Hartkey.
Here.
Brendan, could you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Okay, now I can't. You're going in and out, Jim. But I see that you are present. Molly Hollister.
Here.
Kavitha Matthew.
Here.
Sandy McKee.
Here.
Jean Santoro.
Here.
Larry Shire.
Here.
Ann Seligman.
Here.
Lou Sapersky.
Yo.
Sandra Sherrod. Letty Simon.
Here.
And Kathy Thompson. Okay, we have a quorum.
The minutes from the January 24th meeting were distributed ahead of time by the board office. If there are no objection, we will adopt the minutes as drafted. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the minutes, you may raise your hand through Zoom.
Move to adopt the minutes as drafted.
Saying no objections, the minutes from the January 24th meeting are adopted. They will soon be available on the CB6 website. We will set some ground rules.
Sandy, adopting the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. The agenda. Okay. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and appears on the screen before you. If there are no objections, we will adopt the agenda as stated. Members of the committee, if you object to the adopting the agenda, you may raise your hand through Zoom. And we've had a slight modification of the agenda to accommodate some of the other members who are attending to discuss the New York Open City Restaurants program. Anne?
I'm just wondering if I'm the only one having a little problems with audio, that you're cutting in and out a little bit. If it's just me, that's fine, but.
Is anyone else having difficulty with my audio?
Fine with me.
I can hear you.
Okay, and I guess it must be yours.
Right. If I duck out, it's because I'm rebooting.
Thank you. So if there are no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. Ground rules for our meeting. No one may speak until granted to the floor. Committee members, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. The chat function should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you're having or to state in writing information like an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. When a committee member is given the floor to speak, I will identify you and you can unmute yourself so that you can speak. We are required by New York State law to create a verbatim transcript of the meeting, so please keep your questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. Tonight's agenda, the discussion of the New York City Open Streets Program. And I'd like to turn this over to Anton. There was a meeting of his committee last week, and it came up that this is a very timely issue that we'd like to get before the full board this month. Anton.
Thank you, Sandy. As we discussed in last week's Business Affairs and Licensing Committee, we've been looking at the Open Restaurants Program very carefully. I've attended a number of meetings, public meetings that the DOT and other city planners have had. And I think it's very, very important that the community boards really get more involved in this. And I don't know if everybody's received a couple of resolutions, one drafted by Community Board 1, which is quite extensive. And I took a stab at making a resolution for ourselves. And I think the board office did send it out. I think, you know, we can say a lot of things about the open restaurant program. It seems to be an overall success, but there have been a lot of negatives with it. Among them, noise, vermin, garbage, little or no or enforcement. And it has been taken to the state in many areas where it's not an open restaurant program anymore, but a closed shed program, which is just basically using city space to expand the restaurant and basically have rent-free tables and settings to help the restaurant. I have no problem with helping restaurants. I have no problem with saving restaurant jobs, but from what I've heard, feedback I've heard from the community and these various open meetings, the issue isn't that people don't like the program, but that it's got to be better enforced. It's got to have better rules. It's got to have a situation where we don't have permanent sheds on the street that create a situation that is not conducive to good community spirit. And the second thing is that I have heard from the outer boroughs that there is even more pushback about the open restaurant program, particularly the number of sheds taking up parking spaces, and again, the vermin garbage issue. I'm not against it, neither is our committee against it, to have an open restaurant program, but I think the larger issue is that while they're doing the rulemaking now or going through a process of design for recommendation to the city council as to how these areas should be designed and what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. The problem is one size doesn't fit all. What fits maybe on some parts of the east side, maybe is not good for the west side, etc. But I think the bottom line here is not so much that we don't support the program, but two things. One, that the final rulemaking should be amenable to changes if recommended by the community board. And I believe it's important that for each open restaurant application, that we, as we do for liquor licenses, that the local community board has a say or maybe even veto as to either the design or whether it's appropriate for the area or the street. Side streets have different aspects to them than avenues. Avenues have bike lanes and bus lanes, side streets don't. And as I said, I don't believe there's a situation where one side fits all. I'm sure we can get to close to that, but I think the bottom line is that community boards have got to have a strong input, not only in setting up the rules and the way the open restaurant program should be met, but also that at time of application and licensing, that the community board has its say for each individual restaurant that would like to partake in the program. And I think, we can say a lot of things about the minutiae of can't be more than 36 inches high, or you have to have umbrellas, or this, that, and the other thing is, fact is, this may or may not be appropriate for some areas of the city or some streets in the city. And I'd like to hear what, the other thing is that this is not just the business affairs and licensing. This runs across 3 committees, the transportation and land use and so I think we all have to work together to come up with a resolution that we can recommend to the whole CB6 committee.
And luckily, we have the chair of transportation here. I think it would have been ideal to have their participation as well, but I'm not sure time allows that. And Lou, did you have your hand up?
I have my hand up, Madam Chair.
Okay, and then we'll go to Jean, if Jean, if you'd like to comment.
I
Yeah,
was just wondering if Anton has a written outline or written presentation of the material he's just recited, because I have some pictures that I took a couple of days ago. I was going to submit to the board office, some of them on 53rd Street where the sheds have reached an advanced state of deterioration, and some on 2nd Avenue where the sidewalk cafes have made it nearly impossible for pedestrians to walk. And there are other issues that he alluded to. I think it was an extremely good presentation, and I really would like to have it circulated to the committee.
And I believe it was circulated today, but that may have been too short notice. And Jean, please, if you could go ahead.
yeah, sure. Yes, Anton, I'm sorry, we didn't have a lot of time, and our agenda for this month has been being, let's say it's been constantly sort of scrambled by things like NYU Langone's construction plans. The meeting with them was on, it was off, it was on, it was off. So we were kind of shuffling around, but yes, if you can come on Monday and take 10 minutes or so to present this to the Transportation Committee, we'd be happy to put you on the agenda with what is still on the agenda now. Sorry, your mic is still muted. Anton?
Yeah, I'd like to talk, yes. I think all 3 committees should be involved, as I said a little bit earlier. So sort of present a united front in terms of our thoughts for the full board to consider.
Okay, well then, Brendan, we'll talk tomorrow about setting that up, making sure that it's on the agenda, okay?
Yep, absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Adam, you had your hand up?
Yep. Thanks, Sandy. So what's the timeline? I know the zoning action that allowed the ULIP zoning action just finally passed, and then there was a hearing, I think, within the last couple of weeks. But how close is the council to actually creating these rules?
My understanding is it passed the council on Thursday and that they're now in the process of moving forward. And I think that's why we felt it was a rather urgent issue. And I think we all understand that the DOT is going to be the one who's in charge of the program. And we don't necessarily need to talk about past discrepancies or things that are currently happening. It's more being a part of the process in the future, I think, is what is the concern. And sorry, Larry, and then Gene has his hand up again.
Hi, Sandy, that's correct. The council passed legislation But I do think that in connection with that, the DOT's role was rolled back a bit, and there may be yet another agency more involved in the rulemaking. So that needs to be clarified. And I'm maybe anticipating something that Jean's going to say. Anton, the side streets also have bike lanes in a number of instances. That's it.
Sorry, Jean, would you like to go ahead? And then Anton has his hand up as well.
And in some cases, there are. bus
Sorry,
lanes-
Jean has the floor. Sorry, Jean. No? Okay. Then we'll go back to Anton. He had his hand raised.
Hold it. No. Somehow I muted myself. I'm sorry. Little at odds tonight. Anyway, no, I just wanted to remind everybody that the process is, city council or not, expected to take another 2 years, last somewhere into late 2023 with the rulemaking and devising. And that DOT is the lead agency on it, but the other agencies involve everybody from DCP to an extent to NYPD, FD, DSNY, DCAS, Alphabet Soup Land. And so there are a lot of hands involved in this. And there's going to be a lot of room for input. So it's one reason I'm interested in this reso at all, is that I think we should have an oar in the water when that is going on. So thank you.
Anton.
Yes, according to the, you're right, Thursday night after our meeting, we found out that the city council did pass a resolution, but according to the timeline put out by, I believe, the DOT, they're doing the design process now, but the summer or fall of 2022, which means starting, I guess, around June. This is where they're going to re-engage the community in the outreach program, share the design concepts under the rulemaking process of the CAPA. As far as the DOT being in charge of this, there's been pushback from a few agencies. And that would give the DOT too much power, I suppose. So other agencies are trying to get involved. I don't know where that stands right now.
And Adam, please.
Sure. So can somebody from the office share what was passed on Thursday? Because the timeline that Jean said, that's the one that I thought, when we discussed this over the summer, that's right. I thought we had many months in terms of outreach meetings and whatnot from the respective agencies, or at least DOT.
Just to clarify, there wasn't anything passed per se on Thursday. There was just correct me if I'm wrong, Anton, since I wasn't at the meeting, but there was a draft resolution shown to the committee that the Business Affairs and Licensing Committee discussed.
No, I think Adam's referring to the city council.
Oh, okay. I thought
city council documentation.
Resolution, like this resolution. My apologies.
Do we? I'm not sure that's been published yet. I don't know. Anton, has that been made public? Sorry, Anton, you're muted. Anton, sorry, you're still muted.
Yeah, sorry. I haven't had a chance to review it, but I will do so this week, and I'll see if there's anything there that the board office can put together and have on the agenda for next Monday's meeting.
Great, thank you. And Letty, you have your hand up.
Yes, I noticed that Patrick Hill is here from Keith Power's office. Maybe he can shed some light on this. If you give him the mic, if you unmute him.
Patrick, would you be able to shed a little light? Brendan, I think that's your, can you do that for us?
Patrick should be able to unmute himself.
Hi, everyone.
I,
Here, can everyone hear me?
yes.
Yeah, I can take some questions, but I don't really have all the answers here. I could, give my email, and if anyone has any specific questions, I can definitely get back to them.
I guess our real question is, there was something that was passed on Thursday night that we might be able to have access to?
On Thursday
do know
night, yes, I can check on that and get back to you.
Great, okay, thank you. Thank you. And I guess like in terms of procedure, what we probably want to do is just, I'm not sure this resolution, I mean, if it's going to be discussed at transportation, we've discussed it here. I don't know how we would go ahead and like maybe we can take a brief poll as to whether we support the idea. I think there's probably more review that people would like to do. So it may not happen at this month's meeting. I'm not quite sure of the timing of that, but I guess, Anton, please go ahead.
I have reached out to Kyle to get his thoughts on this, and he hasn't responded. I presume he'll get back to us next week sometime, and we can make some decisions after Monday's meetings.
It's an unusual process because of the three committees that are involved, and I think we want input from all of them. Jean, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Sandy. Yeah, I suggest that this isn't going to happen at March, full board, to say the least. Yeah, I agree with Sandy. Because if you want the committees to be collaborating on this, and you want them to actually have input on it, you're going to have to allow for first the initial meeting and then for feedback sessions, conceivably. So April is conceivably the earliest that I would think this would be possible. Sandy, what do you think?
And that's Anton's has drafted this. We can certainly distribute it. I see your hands up. Please go ahead.
I think April probably be soon enough, given the glacial pace. Sometimes these things go through with the city. They said public comment in the summer. So if we get it out in April, we're certainly well before that.
Great. So I think we'll distribute it to all three committees, and anyone who is interested can join on Monday's meeting with transportation, and maybe have some additional input at that point. But I think we all agree we probably should be aiming for something this spring to address the issues. So thank you, everyone from our fellow committee, and thank you, Anton. We'll make sure that we get some feedback from land use.
Thank you.
Sorry, Jean, did you have another comment? Okay, great. Thanks very much. Thank you. So we'll continue on with the remainder of our agenda. And this was an update from the Department of Design and Construction on the East Side Coastal Resiliency Project, sorry, the ESKER. And I think Desiree is going to make the presentation.
Hi, Sandy, thank you. Let me share my screen. Okay, can you see, you can see it okay? Okay, perfect. Great, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Desiree Gazzo. I'm with the HNT Bureau Program Management Construction Management Team for the Eastside Coastal Resiliency Project. I'm joined here tonight by colleagues at GDC and perhaps some people from our PMCM team. I'm not exactly sure. But we're here to give you an update on the Eastside Coastal Resiliency Project. So a quick highlights or agenda. We're going to give just a quick update on MWBE event that we had the other week. Then we'll just do a quick overview of the project and contracts. We have some updates and photos from Project Area 2 We have 1 or 2 slides very quickly to provide an update on project area 1. And then we have just a slide on some what we've heard items. So on Wednesday, February 16th, we had our ESKER Winter Virtual Information Center and Session and Resource Fair. We've been holding pretty much a quarterly kind of work with us or hiring info session. For this info session, it was a little different. It was a little bit larger than some of our other ones. We had Council Member Carlina Rivera spoke. We had the DDC Office of Diversity and Industry Relations. Both of the general contractors were present as well. The PMCM team. And we also had the New York City Department of Small Business Services and Workforce One, as well as the Lower East Side Employment Network, also known as Lesson, attend. And we had a general session from like 4 to 5 o'clock. And then from about 5 to 6:30-ish, we had these smaller breakout sessions, and the 3 topics are here on the slide. But it was an opportunity for the people who attended to select where they want, like who they wanted to speak to more, where they had questions, what really spoke to them, what they needed more information on. And again, this was all virtual. And it actually turned out really well. It was the first time we've done something like this for this project. And we're looking to have an in-person, something similar, but in person come the spring. We wanted this to be an in-person event, but with COVID in the beginning of this year, it was just unfortunately not possible. But it was really great. And the next slide, I have the resources. The presentation can be viewed online on the ESKER website. If you go to contact and then work with us, you'll see there's a link for the project. And the link is also here. So if you go to our presentations, you can get it. And then this is just some of the resources from the event. And they're kind of categorized here by employment and contracting opportunities. And then there's different kind of categories. And then there's a training opportunities section. And it was all recorded. So the recording of the event will also be available online. But due to the number of breakout sessions, et cetera, we have to kind of stitch everything together before we pop it up. So again, we will let the community boards know when that resource is available as well. But it turned out really well, and we were very excited about it. So for project area overview, we are all very familiar with this map here, I think. Overview of contracts. Project Area 1 notice to proceed was issued in August of last year. I have a slide later on in the presentation that speaks to the current closures. For Project Area 2, the area of Astor Levy Playground and the northern portion of Side Cove Park are the 2 kind of main project areas at this point. Over 650 feet of wall have been installed to date. And I have pictures of the gate installation that just happened last week. So we'll show those there for anybody who has not seen it. And for parallel conveyance, the bid was opened earlier this month, and the preliminary results can be viewed at this link that we've provided here. So for project area 2, again, we've been pretty much moving forward in the areas that continue to be under construction, which is the Astor Levy Playground area. And again, that area is set to open in spring of this year. Then we have the intersection of 23rd Street here. And then where the two is there. And then where the 1 is, which is the northern portion of Side Cove Park, which includes kind of the area at East 20th Street. And that again is scheduled to open later this year, the northern portion kind of around Solar 1. And when we talk about what will that look like, when it is open, it will be, landscaped and fully available to use. So it will be in its kind of final condition. The area directly around Solar 1, where the Solar 2 building is proposed, that will be just restored kind of temporarily. so that it is not, again, fully restored, only to, then have the solar one, the EDC construction come in that area. So that's really exciting, everything that's going to happen this year for project area 2. We will have two nice pieces completed, which is, that's really great and something to look forward to for this year and to celebrate. So again, there is some sewer work down at number 6, which is the FDR ramp. And then within the Con-Ed facility, there's sewer reconstruction and coordination for the utility work that needs to happen in there. I think generally they're continuing with the pile installation and the flood wall. That's one of the big focuses at Astor Levy Playground, is finishing up that flood wall there. And then the next gate that will come in will be the Astor Levy Playground gate. So a few photos. This is the handball court reconstruction here on the left. So there are, again, we didn't, the project doesn't include a new handball court, but it does include a kind of restoration or improvements to the existing handball court. So the handball court has been temporarily closed. It is scheduled to open this week. And that's just a photo of some of the work that they're doing there. The photo to the right is the Stuyvesant Cove Park flood wall. That's, again, looking north. The next photos we have here is the vehicular swing gate. So that does include, that's the swing gate kind of right here. So that's by the Solar One building, and it connects the 2 flood walls. In the open position, it will be against the wall here. So, and then it will swing closed to connect to this wall here. And it was a pretty massive gate that was installed. And again, that was just last week on the 24th. So there are several news articles that I've seen about, but here are a couple of pictures as well. At the last CB6 meeting, we did speak about bringing additional renderings of Project Area 2. So I did want to have a number of renderings for you tonight. I also included here some links. So the Public Design Commission final design presentation and the preliminary design presentation, they are amazing resources for all design elements of the project. So if you haven't seen them, I do suggest you look at them. I did put the page numbers here for where Project Area 2 starts, but they really have a lot of detailed information. Again, we're out of the design portion of the project and we're into the construction part of the project. So, again, we focus on the construction, but this is, what you will see when it is constructed. So here is a rendering of Astor Levy Playground. Again, the handball courts remain where they are. Last week I had shown a photo, I think it was kind of standing in this area over here, looking at the construction of what will be the basketball court. The playground will go here. And then again, the track remains, and then the wall will go here between kind of the playground and the building. So that's one of the project renderings. That's a rendering of the basketball court. Again, looking at the recreation center, the parks building. This is a rendering of Sty Cove Park. So I think that's where we had the questions last week, was what will Sty Cove Park look like? And my mouse is not working, so I apologize. So the Stuyvesant Cove Park, the wall, again, will be between the shared use path here. The shared use path will run, kind of under the overhang of the FDR. And then the wall will be between that shared use path or greenway and the planted park area. And then there will be kind of these areas, and you'll see it in another rendering as well, that these planted areas that are kind of bermed up against the wall. It will have a path kind of similar to what it is now that runs, along the water, and then a more kind of organic path that runs kind of within the planting beds. And then there is some nice seating areas here. There's some seating along the water. And then there's, again, more of these like stepped seating areas as you continue north as well. And then here's the ferry boat landing. This is one of the entrances at East 20th Street. So there will be kind of a wide entrance, safe pedestrian crossing. And then you will see, again, the wall with the vegetation, which will be, again, poking up out there. This is a view looking down the Greenway or up the Greenway. And you could see that it is kind of between the FDR and that wall, the wall there. Here's inside the park, again, now we're looking south at the 20th Street entrance and the plantings there and what that will look like. And again, I think, the plantings might look a little different than what these renderings show, but I have no doubt that solar one will make this area look amazing. And then here's another representation, and this is looking north, and it shows you kind of these bermed areas up against the wall. And then the plantings inside with these kind of stepped areas here for seating and hanging out. And then the paths go around the planting areas. And then moving into Murphy Brothers Playground. There aren't as many renderings for Murphy Brothers Playground. So I did I put in the preliminary design rendering, and this does not, this hasn't been updated with the new plan that shows the area for the comfort station, and it didn't include the dog run. So I just wanted to make sure that we didn't label this as the preliminary design rendering. And then I put in the plans, which includes that location for the comfort station, and then the dog run area as well. I think there was a question about the fields and if they would be turf or astroturf, and they will be synthetic fields. And then the plantings here, those will be planted areas. And then this was just, again, another a larger view of that, the dog run area. There was also a question about native plantings and the planting palette. So I did pop in 2 slides about plantings. Again, all of these renderings are straight from the Public Design Commission presentations. And they go into much more detail about these areas. But again, this is a plan of Sky Cove Park. So there will be kind of these different areas of planting materials throughout. And then they do break it into, I think they have another planting palette, which is called kind of the playground plant palette as well. So you could look to that. And oh, there was a note in the Public Design Commission presentation that did speak to the native plant communities that will be present. And then this is just 2 of the planting palette snippets that I pulled from the presentation. I think there's about 5 pages of plant material in the Public Design Commission presentation. So I will encourage you, if you are interested in the plantings here, you can look there for more information on that. But these are just 2 that I pulled. I think it was the shrubland this is what that was, and then the trees, some of the trees on the right here. So again, if you have any questions about the design, I do encourage that you look at those presentations, and then please use the inquiry tool or the next time we speak if you have any questions. We did update on the ESKER website the environmental monitoring page. So this does include Project Area 2 environmental or the air quality monitoring report for 2021. In 2022, they will come out quarterly. In 2021, we were, again, it was the first quarterly report, so we did have to go through the formatting of that. And then we did receive quite a few comments on trying to kind of make that a bit easier to digest. So we did do a reformatting, which includes the second half. We also have pulled the monitoring summaries, which have been monthly, that we've been doing for the CAG meetings, and we kind of combine them together in one PDF, so that way you can go and see the monthly updates instead of waiting for the quarterly report. It doesn't have as much detail, but it gives you an overview of all the monitoring summaries. And then there was an ask for kind of an air monitoring fact sheet. So that is also available on the environmental monitoring page. And there's two kind of snippets of it here. So if you did have questions or, wanted to take a look at that, it is there. We did spend a lot of time trying to put that together. It's so much information to put on only 2 pieces of paper. But please, if you have any comments, do let us know. Quickly for project area 1, the primary work area is here, which is kind of south of Stanton Street. There is a small portion of the shared use path closed here around East Houston Street for the Con Ed oilostatic work there. If you have questions about that, we did include more information at the CAG meeting and the CB3 meetings that had recently passed. Again, if you have any questions, please reach out to us on the inquiry tool, and we could certainly direct you to where you could find more information. The next kind of big work area that's coming up that's new will be the Corlears Hook Park area and Corlears Hook Bridge. So that work will start about the week of March 7th. And again, that'll be the next part that we'll move forward with, as well as working on removing the rest of the Delancey Street Bridge. Okay, so for what we've heard, there were some questions about neighborhood recreational resources. So we did just want to bring this up on our homepage. This is a snapshot of our homepage here. There is a direct link to the Parks Neighborhood Recreational Resources page. So Parks Department has developed this, this website specifically for the Eastside Coastal Resiliency Project. And if you go here, again, you could get to it from our homepage, or this is a direct link to it. And I'm sorry, there's a horn beeping outside, so I don't know if you could hear that or not, but I do apologize for any background noise. So this is where it takes you to this kind of GIS website for parks. And if you click on this Find an Activities button here, it'll bring you to a pull down menu, and it lists all sorts of activities, tennis, barbecuing, playgrounds, etc. And if you are looking for something specific, you could find it there, and it'll pop up on the map what playgrounds or what parks offer those types of activities and amenities. So Parks Department did say that they will come back in the spring to give an update on the neighborhood parks. But right now they asked if we could, reiterate this information. And then again, please reach out if you have specific questions on our inquiry tool, and then we'll direct it to the Parks Department. So a few other what we've heard items, and this is the last slide for us. So the ferry signage, there were some comments about not enough ferry signage. So we are doing a review of project area 2 as far as DOT signage, detour signage, ferry signage. And so that is under review, and we did reach out to EDC ferry folks, and they gave us specific guidelines of kind of where ferry signage can go. So we are looking at that. For the flyover bridge, the design contract for that flyover bridge is awaiting OMB registration. So again, there isn't any update on the flyover bridge, and as soon as there is more information and that design team is on board, they will come back for updates on that. The Murphy Brothers Comfort Station, we're basically in the same place as the flyover bridge. That contract is undergoing registration. So again, once that team is onboarded, we will come back with more information on that. We did reach out to DOT about the Avenue C bike lane because we did receive some questions about that the last time. So this is from DOT. They recently installed the flexible delineators on the areas where the markings had been completed last week. And then they have to return to complete the East 14th Street markings, I think because there was some construction in that area. So they're going to return to complete those markings and other kind of outstanding details this spring. And then just a note that this would not include outstanding markings between East 6th and East 9th Street, where there are ongoing open restaurant conflicts requiring temporary standard lane marking. So to tie into the conversation that you just had, it seems like that is impacting other items as well. So I hope we addressed some of the requests that were received last month. I do see lots of hands though, so we'll hope to address follow-up questions tonight as well.
Okay, Lou, you've had your hand up since the beginning. Please go ahead.
Just wondering if there'd been any checking done with the original landscape architect for Stuyvesant Cove Park. The emphasis at the original construction was on native grasses and plantings associated with that neighborhood and the river. And I assume that that information is available in the file somewhere.
Yes, so this is where, so the original landscape architects, MNLA, they created all of these slides. So all of that planting information, again, there's these different zones: woodland, wet meadow, grassland, shrubland, and pine barrens. So all of the plant palettes for each of those zones is available on the website. And this is just some of them. This is this particular here, this area, which I think it was the shrubland, does have quite a few native grasses here. Chasmanthium is native, and some of these other ones as well.
Are we going to be using the same palette of native grasses and plants material in this project?
This is the plant palette for this. This is the plant palette for Stuyvesant Cove Park.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Larry, you had your hand up next.
Yes, and Brendan, are you there?
I'm here.
With regard to the item that you're following up on with respect to the ferry signage, I understand Brendan has reached out to DOT to try to find out what the DOT's criteria are for locating its signage. And last I heard from Brendan is that they've told him to file a FOIL request, which isn't very helpful. Let me ask you at DDC, since my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brendan, some of what they've said doesn't seem to be at all applicable to this kind of an area and would result in there being no signage.
Brendan, did DOT ask you to file a FOIL request for signage?
Well, namely some specifics with regards to their signage criteria. That was what they requested me to file a Freedom of Information Law request for, a FOIL request.
Okay, yeah, for the ferry signage, and I don't have it pulled up here. I did read it off the email that I received at the last meeting, and I think it was like within a half a mile of the ferry landing, and it needed to be like pointing directly to the ferry location. It couldn't be, for an example, they gave an example and it couldn't be like turn here and then turn here to go. It had to be like, so I guess it would be signage on Avenue C, or on maybe, I guess mainly on Avenue C, pointing to where to get to the ferry terminal. But I think that's why that's why this, again, as we're looking at the overall detour signage, we are keeping that in mind to see where we can put up additional ferry signage. But Larry, I could get that information to you.
I see this as being a real problem because as you were describing it, it's contradicting what DOT will let you do.
And Larry, maybe we should move on. We've had a fair bit of discussion, and I know that Desiree can show us where the signs are proposed when they're finalized. Let's move.
That'll be great. If you'll permit me, can I ask you about the sewer work that's going on? Are we going to be eliminating CSOs where they're doing that work?
The sewer work, I don't believe any CSOs will be eliminated, but I can get back to you on that.
And what's the irrigation plan? Are you going to use water from the FDR drive and store it? Or are you going to use tap water and run irrigation lines?
There are what are they called? There are water taps. There's not irrigation. There's just water lines that Solar One can tap into with hoses, etc., to do the watering from there.
Because this board has long had a request for a capital project to do a proper irrigation system and not just have taps.
There is not an irrigation system is not included in the project.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jim, you're up next.
Yeah, I was just wondering, is there any plan to deal with the graffiti or to somehow deter graffiti from the wall that will be the bike lane, or between the bike lane and the river?
That's a great question, Jim, because it is just a blank slate there. I believe there is an anti graffiti coating that the wall gets, and I can confirm. I could confirm with that. I think they are also putting in, new lighting under there. So I guess, trying to make the area a little bit more
Hopefully video
visible.
cameras or what have you. Yeah.
So there are not cameras within Stuyvesant Cove Park. I'm not sure what cameras are under the FDR. Yeah.
It would be good just as an anti-crime deterrent as well. And the second question I had is, do you have any maps showing how, like, the Army Corps of Engineers produces a map showing, the 100-year flood, the 500-year flood, the 50-year flood, et cetera, et cetera. Do you have any maps that show what this coastal resiliency plan will do to deter those floods, and to what extent, speaking as someone who survived a flood that went over the dike, over dikes in my hometown, I'm just wondering what this is built for. This resiliency is built for 100 years, 50 years, 500 years.
Yeah, I think it's built for the 100 year.
Okay.
And I would just need to confirm that, and I could try and do it. I'll do that after I could put the link to where you could find that in the chat as soon as I'm done responding to questions here. I'm almost 100% positive it's 100 years.
I thought I'd seen something on it, but I couldn't recollect where and when. Okay, thank you.
Yep, and we do have the FEMA flood plan map too as well, so I could send that link as well.
Very well, much appreciated.
Of course.
Adam, your turn.
Thanks, Sandy. So the slide 12 rendering still shows a parking lot, next to the increased bikeway. This has been pretty consistent with the renderings that we've seen, throughout this entire process. I'm still of the mind that this isn't the best and highest use of that space, especially since the parking lot has been closed for, X amount of years. I think it might behoove this committee to potentially pass a resolution or include in our district needs to, advocate for turning that space into something that's not a parking lot once the construction is finally finished.
Absolutely. This isn't something Desiree can maybe help us with, but we should. I mean, that's part of, and we can talk about that maybe with Kieran next. It's part of really our goals from the 197A. It's been a long-term goal. Great, thank you. And Desiree, I know you answered the question about some of the salvaged material that came up.
Yes. So Parks had said that they prioritize the salvage materials that are coming from East River Park to kind of CB3. However, if there were parks in the CB6 district that had specific needs or had specific thoughts or questions, or wanted to talk through maybe salvage materials that they would need, they would certainly have those conversations with them to try and decide if there are additional salvaging materials to pass along to other districts, since it is the greater ESKER project.
And we can pass it along to the Parks Committee. I attend the CAG meeting, and I know one of the big items that came up was what's happening to the Greenway, because we no longer have that for active recreation for bicyclists and runners. And again, I don't think Desiree can answer that, but it's been a constant question that affects both parts of the work. So we continue to ask that. We'd really love to get some feedback and a better understanding of what's being proposed. Whoops, sorry.
Okay.
But if there are no other questions, are there any other questions that we have? Okay, great. Well, Larry, go ahead.
Larry, you're on mute.
This is a follow-up question with respect to the condition of the bulkhead wall just south of the Ferry gangway. Do you have any kind of an update on its condition, and if there's going to be any remedial work that's done to fill in the holes?
Sure. So Larry, we're working, EDC maintains and operates Stuyvesant Cove Park. So EDC would have to speak to that. But there is an ongoing dialogue about, again, working with the ESKER project on some of the, just like that, some of the sinkholes and issues like that, that we can potentially incorporate into the work that we're doing. So there are ongoing conversations about some of that work. I do not have anything specific, but that would be kind of an EDC question.
Okay, I just bring this up from time to time because I don't know if you're making any progress. Similarly, with regard to your conversations with the DOT respecting the extension of the bike path north of 18th Street.
Is this something we should invite the EDC to our next meeting to try and get some feedback on this particular issue? I mean, as construction is moving ahead, if this needs to be incorporated, we need to plan now. Okay.
Yeah, Sandy, I think so. We could also reach out to them to see if they have something specific we can relay to you, or or maybe you could just reach out and see if they have a response. But that would probably be the best
I think if we both try, it would be very helpful.
That's good.
Okay, thank you.
And similarly with DOT regarding the extension of the bike path north of 18th Street.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you. If there are no other questions, we'll let Desiree go. Thank you.
And just so I was able to confirm it is the 100-year floodplain, but I will still put that information in the chat. So thank you.
Thanks. And so next up is Kieran and Kavitha. I guess if you want to lead us through what you've been up to. I know you sent out a reminder. You're looking for some feedback. Hopefully people have done that.
Yeah, sure. So I don't have like a formal presentation today, but I'll share my screen. One sec. Can you all see the implementation matrix? Cool. So yeah, one of the big parts of my project is to look at what the 197A plan recommended and see what has been implemented and what hasn't from those recommendations. So this document, which I'm kind of wrapping up now, basically does that. So as you can see, there's a column for the recommendation, a column where within the plan the recommendation is discussed, a column for the status, with the categories of implemented, partially implemented, not implemented, or outdated. And then another column for the notes and sources for each recommendation. So just to walk through a few of these recommendations with you all. The first one, explore with Con Ed, NYC DOT, and NYS DOT opportunities to widen the esplanade between 13th and 15th Street by replacing the existing pump with a smaller pump. So I have this one listed as partially implemented. And then if you look at the notes, there's usually an explanation of why the recommendation is classified that way. So in this case, I wrote flyover in progress as part of ESKER. So it's not fully implemented because the recommendation wasn't followed to the letter. The pump station isn't actually being replaced with a smaller one, but the problem the recommendation was trying to address, which is the narrow width of the Greenway, is being addressed. And then in the notes section, I have linked to a city webpage about the ESKER project that discusses the flyover bridge. So the whole document is kind of laid out. Sorry, one second. In this way, so that you can get like an overview of the status of the recommendation in this column, and then read a few more details about it in the notes. And then if you want to go really in depth, you can go to the sources and yeah, read from where I got the information from. And then to go through a few more examples, number 2 is encourage NYC DOT and the Department of Parks and Recreation to make the 25th Street pedestrian bridge handicapped accessible. So that just hasn't happened. So it's listed as not implemented, and there are no notes because nothing has happened. So some are more straightforward than others. The third one, if the FDR drive is to be relocated to grade, study the option of a park on a deck above the FDR drive, is listed as outdated because New York State DOT isn't seriously discussing relocating the FDR drive, as far as I know, to grade anymore. And then if we go down to the 6th one, encourage construction of an esplanade between 53rd and 63rd Streets. This one is listed as implemented because while it's not actually open yet, the city is actively constructing this link in the Greenway. And then if you click on the link, it takes you to a Gothamist article that talks about that project. So the spreadsheet can also be filtered. So you can, for example, look at just the recommendations that have been implemented. So as you can see, there are 7 recommendations that I've marked as implemented. 17 that I've marked as partially implemented, 13 that I've marked as not implemented and 3 that I've marked as outdated. So as you can see, the city definitely has not been following the plan to the letter, with only 7 being fully implemented. But on the other hand, the majority of recommendations are at least partially implemented, which is pretty impressive from that perspective. So I'm not going into the details of every one of these tonight because an interim version of this was emailed to you all this afternoon, which you can look through on your own. But one more thing I want to point out is that I have some of these recommendations marked in this pinkish purplish color, which you can also filter by. These are the ones that I'm not entirely sure about. So for example, let's look at number 36, reroute buses and create or relocate bus stops to support new development in the study area. So I really wasn't able to ascertain based on news articles and minutes from board meetings whether this has been accomplished. And you can see that I have some notes about various bus stops that have come before the Transportation Committee, but none of these really answer the question of whether this was implemented. So that's kind of where I hope you guys can come in. So in the version of the document that was sent out to you all today, you can see there's a column on the right side of the spreadsheet where you can leave comments. And as you can see for 36, someone already left a comment that says most of these are not part of the MTA system, but for private transport. By the way, thank you to whoever wrote that. But that would seem to indicate that this maybe hasn't been implemented, or at least there's more work to be done. And I'm just using that as an example to make a pitch for you all taking a look at this and leaving your comments, because that would be super helpful for me going forward as I try to finalize this. And then, yeah, speaking of that, over the next month, I'm going to be diving more into analyzing how the board can push for some of these recommendations that have not been implemented to be implemented, and also what these recommendations might miss about important priorities for the district in 2022. So I'll be prepared to talk about some of that at my next presentation. And yeah, happy to take any questions.
And just before I go to people who have questions, I guess, I mean, it sounds great that we're going to get some actionable items that we can move forward on. And I mean, we create resos, and I mean, as Adam said, I think that definitely we need to address the issue of under the FDR. But if there are other ways that you think we can advocate, if you could let us know those as well, I think that would be really helpful. Go to questions. Larry, you had your hand up.
Sure. This was really terrific. I took a look at it this afternoon. There were a couple of items that I wanted maybe to ask you directly for some clarification on before I spend time to make a comment online and go back and forth. Number 23, with respect to the FDR Drive and the Greenway, where it has not been filled in by the United Nations. You're talking there about some funding mechanisms that are obsolete right now. I saw something that recently came past the board with respect to some repair work that was being done on the support of the FDR Drive, where it's kind of collapsing at the river's edge, and perhaps you might take a look at whether there's an opportunity to build on those repair projects or add to them in future to build an outer roadway kind of a thing to extend the Greenway past the United Nations, beginning, of course, where it ends at the waterside pier. Have you had any thoughts about that?
Well, so I think that the project to extend the Greenway next to the United Nations is actually funded. That was part of the 2020 city budget. And so in the next few years, I think that project will start construction, and that's kind of like locked in at this point. Is that kind of what you were asking about?
That's the first I've heard.
Yeah, that's what I understand. I'm not sure if I'm
That
incorrect.
would be fantastic if it was, but the MOU has expired, I believe. Maybe you want to.
That's why I'm bringing this up, because I think if that's an error, that should be misleading, and we need to clarify this.
Can I jump in?
Well, maybe you can just follow up with the board, but Anne, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I had a different question, but I was really curious about the issue because I know it wasn't last year's proposed budget, but I also know that Adam's budget decreased a lot of, like, the amount of funding for like open spaces and green spaces is down significantly from last year. And so I was really curious, but because it's such a long process, you know, it's like what his proposed budget is, we don't really know what happens until it goes through the state budget process, which is like June. So so Larry, I think that's a great question, and I don't think we should take it for granted that it's funded.
Well, thank you, Anne. This is something that we are really very, very interested in. And there was one other thing which is much less immediate import, but it's just a question of whether the physical limits of the 197A plan might be expanded with respect to number 37, where there's an overall discussion of intermodal transfer points. The reason I mention this is that we were looking at some improvements to the area of the streets in the vicinity of Grand Central Terminal, and there is an opportunity to reverse a decision by the DOT to eliminate an intermodal transfer to Grand Central from buses on Lexington Avenue. So you could throw that in as maybe a footnote, but clearly we are interested in intermodal transfers and making them more convenient.
Okay, that's definitely good to know. Thank you.
Kavitha, you're up next.
Yeah, I just really quick comment that I think, you know, it's really helpful to see all of it, and I haven't been able to go through everything, but I think the ones that say implemented, we should be careful to only call out the ones that have actually been implemented. And if they're in progress, or we think funding's been approved, or they're in some kind of other status, you might have to add that just for clarity.
Yeah, I can add another category for like in progress.
Because sometimes the progress takes decades.
Right.
So good to know. Okay, Anne, sorry, you're up.
So, Karen, I'm sorry, because I think I owe you an email about our, like the rainfall remediation stuff. So, but if you had, it would be great if you had a chance to take a look at that document I sent. My only question about this work is a process question. And I'm wondering if it might be helpful if when people put a comment in, they said who was putting that comment, or I don't know if it will be automatically. I'm not sure how the spreadsheet is designed, but it seems like if a comment isn't clear, it'd be really helpful to know who made the comment in case you want to get, you know, further information on exactly what was meant. So I don't know if it shows the author of a comment on here.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. It does not do that. So if people can remember to do that, that would be great.
And yes, please, everybody do it, because Karen is working super hard on this and it's really useful, so.
And I confess the comments are mine.
Oh, nice.
Add that. I did it this afternoon. So. Do we have some more feedback for Karen? Kavitha?
I just wonder if we should, if there's any questions that we need to go beyond this committee. And, you know, like, because that one on the bus is, you were able to answer as former transportation chair or knew that information, but I wonder if there's anything else that we need to loop in other committees on, and we should be kind of doing that as well now, so we don't miss out.
I think the ones about childcare and daycare facilities, both of those I kind of don't know how to answer whether those have been implemented. So it would be good to hear from the relevant committee on that. Those are the ones that come to mind.
And I'm not sure how much you've addressed supportive housing, but we do have some very good information recently on that, I think. So it's something that maybe Jesus or Brendan can help you to sort through. And that would be really helpful for us as well. For that. I think you had some school questions as well. Which, again, we could make sure gets to the right committee.
Yeah, okay.
Kavitha.
I just thought maybe it would be helpful rather than, I think, you know, sending the link to the committee is great and some people will click on it and some people won't, but the ones that you have in the purple or whatever color, maybe we can just embed those in an email and send it out and be like, listen, these are the ones Karen's really not sure about and we need input on it. That way it's like just easier for people to see it, and it, something the office could probably help you with.
Okay.
Anything else that we can, well, everyone should take a look at that. It's in the chat and I think it was sent out again. And yes, please, any background information or history of any of these items, I think it'd be really helpful to know. Anything else, Karen, that we can?
Yeah, I don't think so. I will look into the UN Greenway thing and follow up.
Great. Okay, it looks great. It's really helpful, and I think giving us some advice on how we get some more of these things implemented would be great. Oh, Jesus has a question.
Just wanted to direct everyone's attention. I put it in the chat, but as our ground rules state, we should state it aloud for the record. Don't neglect the budget request Airtable. It is a good resource. In fact, regarding the question about the UN Esplanade, there's a note in the notes section of that particular request that indicates that reminds us that Mayor de Blasio announced $723 million in capital funding to close those gaps, including the UN gap. And we include a link to a YouTube video where he announces this. So it could provide a bit more information on that particular request. So for those items in the 197A that are on a budget request as well, the Airtable is a good resource.
Okay, thank you. I think we're optimistic, or not. We're more pessimistic than optimistic, I guess, about that particular item, unfortunately. But okay, thank you. I think next up we have older new business, and also just to in the chat, Patrick was able to send some information which is actually on the city planning website about what passed at the for open restaurants. There's an overview, so. He followed up with that, and I'll send that out to the full committee as well. Jim, sorry, you had your hand up.
This was for new business.
Oh, okay.
When you're ready to accept that.
Please, go ahead.
We had talked, I think it was last year, about having a forum on, or having somebody from city planning come to discuss form zoning. And I'm just wondering if we could follow that up sometime, maybe when we have a light agenda.
Absolutely, and it is on the list of things that we wanted to talk about, and I'll try and make sure we can find someone who can do that. Actually, there's the city planning sent us, there's a new tool that they've put out about, and forgive me, I'm going to gap on it, but there's a course that they've asked people to sign up for. I don't know. Jesus, do you remember the exact name of this particular tool?
I know exactly what you're talking about, but I'm blanking on it too. Let me dig it up in my email real quick.
I'm not sure exactly what it addresses, but hopefully
this would be different from, this would be presumably different from the training that the borough president has offered in the past.
Yes, it's, yeah. Okay.
Equitable
But no,
development data tool. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Kavitha?
Sorry, I didn't raise my hand, but it's the equitable development data tool I think you're talking about. Is that right?
Yeah. Which may be slightly different than what
that's the one
that you mentioned, Jim, but we'll try and with that. Any other new business? We have several pieces of old business. One is the electric vehicles that we discussed last month, sorry. And I know there was going to be some follow-up, and I think Lou had something you wanted to bring up about that, Lou?
I'm going to prepare something for the next meeting of the board. I have a couple of things, and if Jesus would give me a call tonight or tomorrow morning, I have some information I want to gather that he may be helpful with. But there should be something ready before the next meeting.
Great, okay. Also, an item of old business, we asked for an update on the East Midtown Greenway, and they gave us something in writing. They're not going to be able to attend a meeting, but they said that the East Midtown Greenway was restarted after a pause due to COVID in the fall of 2020. And since then, the work has progressed well, and they are targeting a fall 2023 opening of both EMG and Andrew Haskell Green Phase 2B. The work that has been completed is the drilling of all caissons, setting caps, and the majority of the tub girders, and they've begun the topside work in the northern portion of the site. The pedestrian bridge is in place. It was put in place the morning of January 8th. Andrew Haskell Green construction started with demolition of the existing platform, which is ongoing. Remaining work is the rest of the caps, tub girders, and parapet walls for the esplanade structure, as well as all the pavement, planting, and railings. The ramp that connects the pedestrian bridge to the esplanade and deck and railing on the bridge all remain to be completed. Andrew Haskell Green remaining work includes pile installation and all structural deck work, plus topside pavement, planting, and railing. And if you do go past the site, you can see the bridge. It's in place. It's starting to look like it's going to be finished. So that's all good. One thing we did receive some correspondence from Murray Hill regarding the 12 FAR that's part of the state legislature. So I think we'll try and put that on our next agenda. And we'll invite the EDC. And I guess I think I missed the chair's report. I'm sort of a little bit out of sync here. For chair's report, I have been going to the CAG meetings. So if there are any items that people would like to address more for the ESCR, that's certainly a place to do it. It's again, Desiree does the presentation, but and there's certainly a lot of voices for the lower portion of the work. There are a lot of concerns about closing the park. So if anybody has anything they'd like to address, please let me know. And I think that's it. Definitely, though, we do want to do a reso about that space under the FDR. So I don't know if that's something we could do a draft of for our next meeting. And Adam, if I might impose on you to maybe do a draft of that?
I would be honored.
That would be fantastic. And it's a good time to do it while we see these renderings and see what's happening. And is there any other old or new business? I'd like to then ask for a meeting to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Meeting is adjourned at 8:28.